What's up, everybody? This is episode 4 of Storytime with Devin. Okay, what's up, guys? How's it going out there in podcast land? If you're joining us, whether it's on YouTube, Facebook, whatever the case might be at this point, hopefully it's YouTube. We really appreciate you. We really appreciate the listens. I'm back here with Zach Spooner again. Zach and I have persevered through this challenge once more, and we have figured out how to master the remote beauty of technology. So, Zach did most of the rigging on this. Congrats, buddy, because I couldn't exactly do it. So, you hate to see it, but it happens. We're coming through. We're coming through. Uh, Man, we got a lineup today. Man. How's it going? So Zach just moved into college, by the way. Um, yeah. So how'd that go for you down there, moving in?
No, it was pretty smooth, honestly. Didn't have a lot, left most stuff here, so it was pretty easy. Not a lot of pain doing it.
Yeah. Sick. You said you were taking apart your desk.
Yeah, since I got a monitor for Christmas, I had to take off the whole back part because it was like a shelf.
Well, I'm about to make that truck in about 7 days. Jaime calls me yesterday. For those of you who don't know, Jaime is a guy who used to work here. Loser, some say, but he's he's a good friend of mine. Used to work here, and he's living in Chicago now. But yeah, he should be coming back down the next Saturday, Friday. I guess that's 4 days away from now. Always track of time. But what that means is Zach starts school. What you said on Tuesday, right?
Yep, Tuesday.
So he starts school on Tuesday, which is super depressing for me. But then I start school in a week from today, which is rough. So if any of the content starts to go down just a little bit, don't hate too much. Like your boy's traveling, like I'm juggling like 6 jobs, so it happens. And I know Zach's got a ton of schoolwork too. So, but we're gonna try and keep this up because this is one a fun learning experience for us. But more importantly, we want to do something good, want to do something big for y'all, and hopefully can keep producing content and letting you know what it is like for a small business in this kind of world, right? All right, man. So what's the first thing we got today?
First thing we got,
The capital, right?
yeah, the capital, the hot button topic.
Yeah. So is this been over a week now, or like
It
when did this even
was,
happen?
yeah, it's been over a week. I believe it was on the 6th of January.
6th. Jesus. Well, cool. I'm sure most of y'all have heard the Capitol storm by now. I'm sure you've heard it, you've seen it, done all of that. And what we're here to do is not to dictate one side or the other. I simply had a conversation with Zach last night, and we talked about it then, as we talked about it before a couple times. But I had an interesting interaction, and I just wanted to bring forth some facts that some people might not know, might not understand. And these are exactly what I said. Is these are just facts, right? This is no swaying of opinion. We'll talk about it a little bit, but it's really just information for y'all. And it's going on, so that's what it is. But Zach, why don't you break down for us the events that occurred in this first, in the events that happened on the 6th?
Okay, well, I know initially, Trump, he had a rally outside the White House, for, in support of himself, obviously.
So that was outside the White House the same day?
Yeah, it was outside the White House the same day. And then
Okay.
later on, after he stepped down from the rally, the crowd moved on to the Capitol.
Hmm. And this was all set up for the intention of knowing that there was a vote going on. Like, why would Trump
Yeah.
being having why would Trump have a rally when I mean he's leaving office anyway?
Uh, I honestly don't. A lot of it was talking about in his rally was talking about stopping the steal.
No,
That was a
that's what
heavy
I was getting at.
theme
Yeah,
of his rally. I don't
right.
know everything he specifically said, so I'm not gonna, you know, get too in depth
Yeah,
with it. You know.
yeah, yeah. You know, um, we can fact check later too if we need. So, but yeah, go ahead.
Okay, but after that, the crowd moved down from the White House to the Capitol because they're very close to each other, and basically they ended up being able to break into the Capitol, partially due to a lack of police presence.
Mm. Now that I've heard a couple sources, is this right or wrong? I've heard a couple things that says the police knew there was something gonna happen that day, and there was a memorandum passed out, and it said like, "Don't shoot him." Right?
I don't know about that. I do know that lawmakers were unaware that the police actually did request for assistance, and they were never backed up by the National Guard.
Hmm. That's interesting.
Yeah. I
That's a
also
poor
heard. I
miscommunication.
can't. I did hear that initially Trump didn't want to deploy the National Guard.
Yeah, which would make sense because it looked pretty bad on him.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So a recap of the general events. Trump's having a rally. The day was the vote for
Yeah, it was certifying the Electoral College.
You're right. So the big focus here is the certification of the Electoral College. All right. Trump's having a rally. The rally ends. His ralliers. Now, where was Trump during this time? Where did he go after the rally? Was he just like back doing
He
normal
was in the
Trump
White
stuff?
House watching TV.
Okay. Okay. So it wasn't like he was in the forefront of the rally at the Capitol, right?
No, I know that's why. Apparently, some people were mad because he said, "I'll be right there with you."
And then he wasn't.
Yeah. I'd
Yeah.
say, I
Yeah.
know, shocking. That a 70-year-old man is in the middle, in the front of the
He's
crowd.
not leading the charge. What a shocking revival. Okay, so Trump's chilling out now, and this
Yeah.
rally then decides is he hitting up Twitter at this point? Like, at what point was he hitting up Twitter with like these supposedly irrational, crazy remarks? Right?
It was some point. The only time I know he hit up Twitter is he posted a pre-made video after about like 2 minutes after Joe Biden said get on challenged him to get on Twitter,
Joe Biden challenged him to get on Twitter.
and
Was that in
he
an
said
effort to
stop the
calm the
violence.
ralliers?
Yeah, to stop the
Oh,
violence.
okay, okay, okay. So
I don't know
yeah, and
exactly
then
what he sent out. I know he sent out earlier tweets. I don't know exactly what those were, so I don't want to make any claims.
yeah. Let me actually pull. Well, I don't know if I can pull that up. Um, I just
I don't
want
know
to. I
if
want to
he
get this
can.
for
I think his
you.
account might just be permanently wiped.
Yeah, I know it's all over news sources though.
True.
Sending coup to Capitol. I don't know. I don't know if I can pull anything off of this. Business Insider, right here. Okay, so Trump said at the time of the attempted coup, Mike Pence didn't have the courage to do what should have been done to protect our country and our Constitution, giving the states a chance to certify a corrected set of facts, not the fraudulent or inaccurate ones which they were asked to previously certify. USA demands the truth. About 15 minutes after fanning the flames, with his initial tweet, Trump appears to take a different tone. Please support our Capitol Police and law enforcement. They're truly on the side of our country. Stay peaceful. Right? 45 minutes later, Trump added, I am asking for everyone at the Capitol to remain peaceful, no violence. Remember, we are the party of the law and order, respect the law to our great men and women in blue. And then it says, however, he didn't ask any of his supporters to leave the Capitol. Right? And so, again, Trump's wordings here is the important thing to take note of, right? Suggestive, at the least, suggestive, but passive at the best. You know.
I can add on what he said in his video in response to Joe Biden.
Yeah, go ahead.
What did he say? His video was mainly about how the election was he believes the election is stolen, and it mentions be peaceful, and then he also said you need to go home now. You're very great people. We love you.
Mm-hmm. Right, and so despite all that, and this again isn't saying if you like Trump or whatever, like the political views, one, you don't know mine or Zach's, so it doesn't even matter. It's irrelevant from that. Um, but the political views aside, what does this mean? This doesn't mean like if you are like liking Trump or if you think that like he was doing good stuff or if you were even like on his side in this position, it doesn't mean that you're a bad person. We're just talking about the actions that were taken and what this means for America, because I think this is where it gets lost in the media and the news. We're overlooking, just as I was even overlooking it, possibly what was going on. And then it was brought to my attention again, like by our conversation last night, like the actual intentions of the attack, like what could have happened, could have been detrimental, right? Or like what was the intention of what was going on behind the actions of like what Trump was saying, and with the coup and the possible, like you were saying, the overruling, right, of a peaceful transition of power.
Yeah, that was the big thing. It was the symbolicness of the peaceful transition of power. Also, what he said about Mike Pence. Mike Pence does not have the constitutional power to overturn an election. In that statement. So, like, he may have called on it, but, like, he does not actually have the power to do anything.
So, essentially, it's just like, that was just like another shot for no reason, Yeah. Is that what I'm gathering? It was just a Trump shot?
Yeah, basically. Like, Mike Pence, it didn't matter what Mike Pence wanted to do. In this case, he did say he wouldn't, even if he could, but even if he didn't want to, he doesn't have a choice. But it's he doesn't have the power. It's Congress that has the power.
Right. Okay. So, what does this mean? Like, what does this mean for us as a country? Like, what's the significance of it? Like, that's what I want to get past. I don't want to get past, like, in the media stuff, like what they said, he said, she said, what, like, our comparativisms. Well, we're talking about like what this means for the country, which is like if this did go through, and like historically speaking, this has probably been one of the bigger events that have happened as far as outside of the like some other like before Reconstruction, like you were telling me, right?
Yeah, when sorry. Yeah, when Reconstruction ended, basically what happened is the Union Army pulled out of the South. So then, at the time, people in the South, they basically intimidated African American voters and like would threaten to even kill them. And in North Carolina, at least, they actually stormed the town, forced the entire government to resign at gunpoint, and retook control of the town.
Right. So, in that on like on a federal level is what we're seeing now, maybe on a grander scale, just because the significance of this means that what has happened was a potential takeover of the federal United States government in their resisting of a peaceful transition of power, essentially forcing Trump back into their position of power, right? That's the goal per se, right?
Yeah, at least that was the idea. I mean, that was the whole campaign: stop the steal, so keep Trump in office.
Right.
So I think we can assume that, like, if they're storming the Capitol, the goal is to prevent the transition of power to peaceful transition of power to Joe Biden.
Yeah. Right. So, we've got a couple of obvious glaring things that maybe we'll just touch on. It's hard to talk about them because they're so polarizing for people. but I'll just run over them just because I think they're important. Um, when we talk about this, and obviously the past year for us has been quite a trivial year for the United States, with all the events that have happened, the virus, the distrust in media, the continual like spewing disease of misinformation that happens so fast um, via social media, which is an incredibly powerful platform. But we all know that power can be used in both good and bad ways, and oftentimes because the quick instantaneity of social media, we will be often even news sources are often to share something immediate right off the cuff because they want to be the first to grab it. They want to be the first anchor. They want the most clout. They want the first guy to say it. Um, but the problem with that is we get less checked, less um, sustained. We don't actually have the most solid coverage on all of these topics. And so when we look at this and we look at these events, I mean, what we got here is like the Black Lives Matter movement, um, as we were seeing this past year. Yeah, it was like definitely a trivial one. I didn't agree with a lot of what was going on. It was very difficult for me to see, the rioting and looting in a lot of places. Yeah, it can be very chaotic in my opinion, and what I was seeing through that, my initial knee jerk reaction to this was like, okay, well, yeah. So it's kind of like the big brother, little brother thing, which is like, all right, if Johnny can do this, and, then your mom gets mad at you when you try and follow his same actions, it's like, well, Johnny did that. Why can't I do that? Right. So I think that's how most of America looks at this, which is a very naivete way to look at it. But nonetheless, I mean, we're all simple people, at the end of the day. Um, However, what I want to bring to the attention here is why it's not the same, right? Why there is a difference. Because apparently, with the Black Lives Matter movement, if we really look at the root of at least the consequence of the movement, if you can even collectively say it was a movement because it's a lot of individual movements inside of a group, I suppose. But the movement itself, had consequences of these riots, of these loots, of these things like that. Um, and that was essentially the consequence of where everything was going, right? But what those people were fighting for was more for getting back to something that they are getting, I should say, not getting back, but getting something that they believe they didn't have, which is stemming from primarily the instance of, but numerous instances over the years of George Floyd. And, he should be able to simply go outside the store and he was claiming to have not, tell me how to exact. It was
they were called because apparently they claimed he was paying with counterfeit money.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was ever verified or not, but that was why the police were called.
And so a counterfeit $20 bill leads to death and murder. Obviously, that's a little bit like it's starting to get very skewed here. And because of Corona and all these other things, like it led to finally, I mean, there's been way worse things that have happened. Obviously, this is very gruesome, not downplaying it at all. But like, there's been way worse things with other people in the past, black, white, whatever, that have happened. But it just led to this peak pinnacle point. And now it's like back to what today is, which is Martin Luther King Jr. Day. And, we're leading back to getting something that we, have never had for certain populations in this country. There is division in some ways, there is privilege in some ways. And that's just the way the world kind of works. And we're trying to build and overcome these things. Very difficult. Now, the distinguishing factor, and Zach, I'm going to have you try and sum this up because maybe you can do better than me. The distinguishing factor between that and this movement that we have going on as of January 6th is what?
The biggest distinguishing factor is George Floyd, he was murdered. There's proof. Whereas the biggest thing is there's been no conclusive proof that there was election fraud.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and why is that?
That's because one of the biggest things is they brought around 60 court cases to judges, and not just liberal judges, judges that Trump has appointed as well, and even to the Supreme Court, which has 3 judges that Trump appointed, and you only need 4 to agree to hear a brief. Every single one of them has been thrown out. And in addition, the Secretary of State of Georgia also.
And those were by his judges, right?
Yeah.
Like those are Trump appointed judges. So
Both
even
Trump
those guys,
yeah.
Right. And what happens is, just for the maybe people that don't know, like when stuff is thrown out, usually it's thrown out on a premise that it's just not even able to be conclusive. There's just not enough evidence or even hard facts to even begin to conclude a premise beyond reasonable doubt that this happened, right?
Yeah. And then, sorry, I completely lost my train of thought.
No, you're talking about the Georgia senator.
Also, the Georgia Secretary of State, he has nothing to gain from certifying Biden. Like, it's basically political suicide.
Mm-hmm.
Because Trump is the kingmaker in the Republican Party. So,
right, and he is. I'm not familiar with him.
Yeah, he's a Republican. So it's like, that's the thing. It's in his best interest if they're actually. And Georgia's had, I think, 2 or 3 recounts, which makes me believe it's unlikely that there was widespread voter fraud.
Right. Go ahead.
So
go ahead.
I was going to say, so the big compelling difference is that these 2 movements, one was triggered by the treatment, like one of the catalysts was the treatment of George Floyd, and the catalyst was something that, like, as far as I know, there's really been no proof that's been offered up, no conclusive evidence that's been able to hold up in court.
Right, and that's what we're talking about here is conclusive evidence. We can go down conspiracy paths all day long. Obviously, it's fun. Sometimes it's we think it's possible, things like that. But the problem is conclusive evidence behind what is and what is not possible, right? Looks like we're getting a phone call. It's a Monday, so sorry to whoever you are who's calling, but we are not open. We are not open. They could be able to see it on the sign, maybe. Yeah, so I totally lost myself here. But yeah, the defining evidence is sorry, just making a note here. The defining point of that fact is that what has happened with the election, not conspiracy theories, not other things. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying all these theories are just null and invalid. Like, of course, like we all have like pretentiousness against politicians, very corruptness, whatever and whatnot. But like we're talking about thousands and thousands and millions of people that would have to be touching these hands in order for this to be conspiratorial at this point. And for the matter of like saying that Zach and I are, I'm speaking on his behalf at the moment, but like what we're saying here is, there isn't not election fraud. There always is election fraud. It happens every single year. But we talk about margins of error, the amount of marginal error or fraud in this case that would have bumped from this election to the last or to the one before that would have to be it's so marginal that there's not even a distinguishable difference. And Zach, you and I talked about this. Marginally speaking, maybe we talked about this, but like when you run the numbers back, Trump lost this election virtually by the same margins that he won the last election, right? In each state. I thought that's what I had kind of heard.
Yeah, I think it was pretty close. It might have been slightly larger in like Wisconsin and Pennsylvania.
Right.
But basically,
right. So it's not
very similar.
Right. It's not like it's far fetched, and as far as votes coming in late, I don't even want to get into all that. But like as far as the votes coming in late, like it's a natural consequence of mail-in voting. Yes, mail-in voting is just about the same corruptness as in-person in ballot voting. Why? Because there's machines and there's people, but like there isn't a ton of corruptness. Like the amount of corruptness, it's just a margin of error. It's like when you drop a ticket, when you drop a vote, when you miss a turn, like those are all very similar. And so like this isn't abnormal at all. I would say that this election year is no more abnormal this year than it was, other than the fact that we had an outstanding voter turnout. I think it was one of the highest we've had, right?
Yeah, it's been the highest, at least I think, in like the last 100 years or something. It's been a
And
long
rightfully
time.
so. And rightfully so. It was a big election for a lot of people, and Corona added on top of that. Nobody's doing anything. Again, it makes sense if you look at the numbers and you look at the facts. We're not saying yes, this is the way it should go, this is the way it shouldn't go, but we're just saying here's the facts, here's why it's happening. Biases aside, opinions aside, that's kind of what it is. And it's unfortunate, you know, these events aren't the greatest things that happen. And now look at some of the consequences of it. This is where we get into like political gaming and things like that. Zach, you were saying that companies disown are now like rejecting and disowning GOP, the Republican Party, in an
It's
effort to discourage them.
it's specifically everyone who voted against certifying Biden's election results. So yeah,
Right,
basically
which was,
most of the House of Representatives.
yeah, I was going to say it's for all but 10, all
Yeah,
but
all
10,
but
because I think
10.
there was 10. Right.
And then it's a handful of senators, including Ted Cruz.
Mm. So, I mean, this is where we get to political gaming, um, lobbyists, and the ways our country is going to get led, depending on how we react out of this. So, yes, obviously, a lot of companies they just pick the side. It's just like every business, and that's the thing about business is like most businesses are too they most businesses are acting only in their beneficence, and so whatever they got to do to make it sound good and look good for the upcoming leader, that's what they're going to do. Apple did the same thing all the time. Like Tim Cook, a well-known like Democrat, is like kissing up to Trump the moment he steps in office. Has like multiple luncheons and dinners with him and his family, and Donald Trump Jr. Like all these guys trying to get in with tax breaks, tax cuts, and
Right.
Trump was pulling them out.
Tim Cook is the CEO of Apple.
What did I say?
Oh, you just talked about Apple and him. I just wanted to clarify in
Oh,
case.
yeah. I totally just overlooked that one. Yeah, Tim Cook, CEO of Apple, well-known like Democratic believer and whatever, which fine, whatever. But like immediately, he starts playing to the cards, and this is what we see everything happen. Um, and like I want to talk about censorship now. Like that's the next conversation that we're about to have in America over the next year is how censorship fits into um, what we're gonna do. You know, um, I know like Zach, if you want to speak to the consequence of what happened after with Twitter with Trump and his account, and also I guess all of social medias with Trump after what had happened on the 6th.
Yeah, so Trump had his Twitter account locked for 12 hours. And basically after that, he was much more like not encouraging. He was very much like we need to start healing and stuff, and then Twitter just banned him.
Really?
Yeah, it was kind of like he was more conciliatory. Like he wasn't like he was instead of being divisive or anything. Or Trump was being more conciliatory, and then Twitter's like, this is I don't know. It was like a very marginal charge that they decided to ban him on.
And he got banned for, is this life or 2 weeks or?
I'm pretty sure it's indefinite.
Oof, hate to see it.
And then
Yeah, so
everyone else followed suit. Facebook was
Yeah.
next, then Facebook, YouTube, Snapchat, Instagram.
Hmm. And when they're banning these accounts, guys, what we're talking about is they've banned at the real Donald Trump, right? They've banned Donald Trump's personal accounts. They have not. What they haven't banned is like the White House. They haven't banned the president or POTUS, right? They haven't banned any of the professional accounts. They simply ban personal accounts of Donald Trump. So it's not like they've limited all of his access to social media whatsoever. And technically, that's how they're getting away with the censorship because it's personally his.
Yeah. The other thing is Twitter and other platforms basically so they don't have to regulate speech in the past. So like, oh, political leaders can basically say whatever they want.
Mm-hmm.
That way they could sort of get around people arguing that they should be banned for violating X part of, the user agreement. But that's why a bunch of that's why Twitter didn't ban Trump. That's why they haven't banned like any world leaders before.
Mm-hmm. Which leads us to the discussion of right now, which is now that they've done so, now what? So what Twitter's done, not just Twitter, it's all these companies, but like what Twitter's done is opened up all of this huge can of worms as to the consequence of banning a world leader. And the reason we say that is because when you look at different world leaders, like Zach, I was talking to you. What's the guy's name? Say it again.
Ayatollah Khomeini.
Ayatollah Khomeini, right?
Yeah.
At one point, leader of Iran, right?
Right.
So at one point, huh?
Oh, nothing.
Okay. So at one point, he made a tweet that said "Death to Israel," right? I'm sure just as many as other people did, but he's a political leader, and so it's like, okay, crap. Well, now what? Well, Twitter in that instance, and I don't remember when this was, but Twitter in that instance left him alone. They said, we're going to let the people decide. We're going to leave it up there. There's nothing heinous. There's nothing too bad. We'll just leave it there, and the community will see and decide. But now that they've limited Trump and they've banned him from the platform, now it's like, okay, we're allowing censorship in a sense, or we're at least, yeah. So like the limiting of a world leader, period, is now intimidating for all other world leaders on a Twitter or social media platform driven by America, just because it's like everybody was using it. But what if Jack Dorsey, the CEO of Twitter, but I'm saying Jack Dorsey just because we generalize it as him, even though it's not him by any means. What if Jack Dorsey, aka Twitter, bans the leader of Russia, or I don't even know if Russia has Twitter, but some other Saudi Arabia, any of these other, in whatever sense that they are a leader. What happens when they start banning these accounts from their social medias? Where basically what happens is we're at the mercy now of people like Jack Dorsey, like Mark Zuckerberg, the founder of Facebook and owner of Instagram, and like heck, even Bill Gates, Google. So we're at the mercy of these people to decide what is and is not okay.
Well, one sec, just quick clarification. Bill Gates actually does not control Microsoft anymore.
That is true. That is true. Forgot about that. I guess though, if Bill did, throw a quick bird, hey, we should probably not do this, I'm sure they would maybe listen.
Yeah, true.
Is he on the board still?
I honestly don't know if he's still on the board. I know he only owns like 1% of the company now.
That would seem so crazy to build a huge company like that and just flat out walk away. Like that would be insane. So, yeah, guys. And that's basically what we're getting at here is, and I don't know, Zach, what's your opinion on censorship? Or, what's your thoughts behind it?
The biggest problem with it is it's very inconsistent enforcement of guidelines. If they have guidelines and they're willing to enforce it, at least we have a starting point. But it's been wildly inconsistent with Twitter is the biggest issue. Because first they're like,
Right.
first they're like, no one can violate our guidelines. And they're like, oh, if they're world leaders, they can violate our guidelines. But now, like starting this year, they started, labeling things as misinformation or whatever. So they started taking more activist role, but they also focused more on certain leaders because, like, Iran is not going to be able to change Twitter's bottom line. Iran's regulation laws.
Yeah.
US it can. And also, Jack Dorsey knows he's opening a can of worms. He called it dangerous but necessary. So he's aware that he's opening a can of worms.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the problem, guys. So
he just thinks it's in his best interest, I'm sure, to ban Trump.
And I think in a perfect world, it would be a great way to, make things happen, right? If we could all agree upon these keyword codes of like, okay, this is not okay. This is the community guidelines. This isn't okay. But like, guys, we're talking about not just algorithms that can pick out like violent words and violent actions. We're talking about going back to something that's has to be a little bit smarter to process this information, which is human beings. So we're at the mercy of, whether it's a worker behind the desk at Twitter picking out who is and who isn't allowed to say something, right? And I'm sure if it's a big enough figure, like it goes through an amount of people to decide that. But the deciding factor at the end of the day still has to do with the biases of that company, whether they're liberal, whether they're conservative. And I mean, currently the outrage right now is that there's a ton of censorship around radicalist rightist voices like Alex Jones, people like that in this country. Maybe rightfully so, maybe not. I mean, it's a hard conversation to have. I think censorship is scary. I think it's quite problematic because we don't have quite clear structural guidelines to follow. But I think we're going to have to figure out something and how to at least cure the cause of misspread of information,
Yeah, because the problem is you need to have some regulation, like the classic example. You can't just not penalize someone if they yell fire in a crowded theater and it causes a stampede. So obviously there has to be at least some amount of regulation. That's the issue. It can't just be the Wild West.
Yeah. I don't know, man. It's going to be interesting, for sure. Especially when it comes to like talking about whether these platforms are huge for companies, right? Small businesses are huge for us. Like I use Facebook on a daily basis. And what that means for us is obviously I don't think we're going to get censored on anything or whatnot, but it just the algorithms change, the people's permissions change, and stuff could go on and on. But whether we view social media as a platform that essentially is a human right, is the internet a human right, or is the internet simply a company? Like obviously the internet, guys. I mean, we're at the point in society. And I know it sounds crazy to say this, but like we're at the point in society that like internet's like water. It's kind of necessary, Think about I know there's days we just can't even fathom it at this point unless you're there somehow still. But like think about if there's been a day where like you haven't had internet or like you haven't needed it, like haven't been on your phone or whatever, anything like that. Like, yeah, people can very naively be like, yeah, I don't need internet. Like I wasn't on my phone at all yesterday and I don't do anything. I just work and I go home and I read books or watch TV or whatever. Like that's not like even then you still have the internet because you don't have the things in your house if you don't have the internet, the internet is almost at a point to where like I don't know if any of us could say like we don't need the internet anymore. So if that's the case, does it become like a natural human right? You know,
Mm.
I know it's a big conversation. It's a
Yeah, because I mean, a lot of jobs now when you apply for them, email. There's no more snail mail. They don't tell you how you got the job through snail mail. It's all email.
yeah, yeah,
Paying half the people now, they just get like this is the thing. Banking, all that is moving online. Like more and more people are using everything online to pay.
yep. Online banking, online. I mean, we're talking literally everything is going online, and it's just it's a definitely necessity for my life. Um, and for those of you that say it's not, like that's great, but like I'd love to hear, like, please DM me something. Like, I'd love to hear your perspective on why it's not. I'm not saying it's the greatest thing ever. I'm just saying we're at a point now that we're past like not using it. Like, let's say we can all go a day, a week, even without internet. That's fine. But that's, we also know if we absolutely needed access to it, we could get it. Right. Like, if we absolutely needed to, find out some information or had something to do or this or that, or we needed like to get this done, we could get it easily.
Yep.
We wouldn't have to wait around for it.
And Corona's really pushed us into embracing technology a lot faster, embracing like more use of the internet, like Zoom.
Yeah, yeah, guys. Like, I'm being serious. Like, if you don't see how fast Corona has pushed us into the internet world, which is like good and bad, because like a lot of the older generation, I wonder. I've tried playing the world back in my head. Like, what if Corona didn't happen? Obviously, nobody suspected this to happen, but like, what if it didn't happen? Now we were at a time where it was like, oh man, the young crowd, as it always happens, the young crowd is so engulfed in technology. Like, they're really gonna, surpass the older people, and older crowd, 30 and up, were falling off in technology. They weren't really that great at it, and so on and so forth. But now, since Corona, like the large majority of the world, whether you're 15 or whether you're 55, has had to figure out how to open up your phone, look at some pictures, take some videos. You know, you've had to figure out how to, share some links, start some recordings, take a live stream. Like, that's kind of not super advanced, but like you got to start having to know what you're doing on a computer in order to do those things, right? So I wonder what would happen if we weren't in this position. It's pretty crazy. Um, we've been pushed. I'd say we've been pushed 5 years further into the future in 1 year just by Corona happening. Maybe not in the advancement of technology, but in the growth of people understanding it. I don't know. It's interesting, man. You got anything else on that?
No, that's pretty much it. One of the
Okay.
things it does, I'm sure it does change the restaurant industry because there's a lot more demand for delivery. Being able to just order online, not call on the phone.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought about this today as we got food from somewhere today. And guys, like I'm serious. Like the place we went to eat, it did not have online ordering or whatever. And they didn't even really have a website. And like the website was just like a generic, it wasn't even like their home, it's there wasn't even their URL. It was like a generic, like a third party site, and you couldn't actually navigate through it. There was no interactivity at all. It was one button. Crap. And so when I was there, I'm like, man, like I call him on the phone, I get a lady with like attitude, and I'm just like, this maybe he's not the greatest. Like, like I hate when that happens because then I feel bad and I automatically am like, I don't really want to spend money there. And then yeah, but point of the being is like just looking at the slowness of the growth of that. Like if we didn't have online ordering now, guys, like of probably 60% or more of our orders, or 40% or more of our orders come through online ordering. And it's great for both of us. We get charged a little bit more for that. I mean, you guys don't see that, but like credit card processing wise, we get charged more. And it's great for both of us. We don't need another worker sitting there answering the phone. We don't need this crazy expensive phone line, this VoIP phone line or something like that. And the orders come in automatically. And so, yeah, what we're going to see, guys, is like buildings being put up and they're only delivery distribution centers in the next few years. It'll be Chick-fil-A distribution delivery center, and they only make orders for delivery. And it's special packaging and it's special this and like it's a quick drive up, pick up, and go. So that's what we're always innovating for here, and that's what we're trying to do. And I'm taking it grain by grain. It's not so easy. And my parents, they've let me do a ton, but like it's not easy to get to that point. But we're trying to do everything we can, just like we have delivery via DoorDash now, but it's through our own website. I'm hoping one of the things I've really been working on and I haven't told anybody, but I need to hopefully can get it done at some point is self-service ordering. You can come in to the restaurant, whether you're picking up an order or you're placing an order, go up to the iPad, make the order yourself, and put it in right there in the store. So it's all about speed. We know you guys don't like to wait around. I don't like to wait around a ton when I go to restaurants. Like when I'm in Alabama, if I could go to Hattie B's and put my order in myself, I would all day, all day long, just because like it's so comforting for those of us who know how to like fluently use technology. And the user interface isn't trash. That's the key. The user experience cannot be trash on the website end, because if it is, guys, it sucks. Like Panda Express's app, absolute trash. Like I would never use that to order food. But Taco Bell's app, solid. I will use that all day long. So, like for me, it's comforting because I feel like I can order what I want. I can customize it the way I want. I'm clear about it. I don't have to have I know what my options are, and then I can thoroughly decide on my own time rather than like being rushed because I'm at the counter and everybody's looking at me and I get a long line behind me. So yeah, guys, the way technology is going it's definitely going there, right? And that kind of like leads us to right now, like where's the restaurant industry now? Or like where's business now? I mean, many of you guys know it's January. It's cold. Winter just happened. A lot of us are broke. A lot of us have spent the majority of our money at Christmas and on Christmas, and yeah, that usually is that means restaurants aren't that busy this time of the year. So I know a lot of restaurants. I've talked to quite a few restaurants around town. I've been with them and watching them, hearing from our vendors. A lot of people are slow right now. A lot of people don't have the business that definitely they could use to sustain during this time. January is always slow. Usually doesn't matter what business you are, unless you're like a gym. Usually you're going to be kind of slow because people don't have money. Society kind of shuts down, and or I guess an accounting firm, gyms, accounting firms, maybe some New Year's res firms, stuff like that. You know what I mean? But everybody typically slows down. I remember for us, it used to be very tragic. I mean, we would slow down to the point of like our days would be a third of what they normally were, and or at least a half. Yeah, I guess it would be about a half of what they normally were, and that's rough, guys. Like when you're pulling in barely enough to break even on payroll, it's hard, and you don't really have many options because you can't just you close early, but then people get frustrated, and all the inconsistencies is just it's not good. So I got a lot of sympathy for restaurants that are struggling, and I see it, and it's saddening. And I'm trying to do a lot I can to help with some other people. I'm trying to help out some businesses, some friends of ours, and it comes down to a point of innovation, right? Like Zach, I'm sure that you see the restaurants that you choose the most probably are more innovative than others because it's just easier for you. It's like Chick-fil-A, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
Sorry.
no, you're good. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just like agreeing with you that when like the restaurants that it's very easy to order from, like very the ones that are doing like it's very seamless. That's the kind of like you want to go back to.
Hmm. So it's going to be interesting, and I think the way that the restaurant industry is going to progress here, I don't think people will ever stop going out. For it'd be a long, long time for that to happen, but people still need each other. Like everybody, I mean, right now is breaking to get out of their house because they want to go back out and see their friends, just see people. Like people still need people, but like movie theaters, right? Netflix is going to put out a new movie every single week. So what we're looking at here is the creative innovation that places are going to have to do in order to stay on top and at the top of people's mind and make them want to come out. So maybe they aren't coming out now just for food, but they're coming out for food and a show. Or maybe they're coming out for shopping and food or something of that nature. Um, Same thing with shopping. Like shopping's gonna have to figure that out too. Because man, in-person shopping is going down real quick with the innovation of internet. And just wait until AI comes along when you have like such quality and easy virtual reality that you can just like see the crap right there in your house, like everywhere. Ooh, man, it's gonna put a damper on some stuff, man. That is gonna put a damper on some stuff. Um, yeah. So, anything else on that, Zach?
Honestly, I really don't have anything to add on this.
Okay.
No, the
Yeah.
only restaurant that or the only store I know that already makes it a whole experience is IKEA.
Right.
You spend the whole
Right.
day there, you eat there, you do everything there.
I'm telling you, man, they get it wrapped up. And like people literally, I mean, when you think about IKEA, I've never not thought about IKEA as like a freaking tourist attraction. Because when people talk about it, they're like, "Oh yeah, I went to IKEA." It's like a big deal. It's not just like, "Oh yeah, I went to IKEA the other day." It's like IKEA, like whoa, like you went there. It's like a freaking vacation spot. So like genius branding on their part. Um, and I did like I've never actually been into IKEA. My parents have been a couple times, but me personally though. Um, but yeah, it's really about innovation and it's about the creative and figuring out what works for you and what works for your people. And that's what I've been continually trying to do for the past couple of months. I've really been on a bender of figuring out how to be more creative, hence why we're doing said podcast right here. Um, so definitely trying to be more creative and figure out what works in those sense and whatnot. It's not easy, but like these past 2 months, I thought I was going to be able to build an app for us in which I just got derailed and sidetracked immediately with a ton of like marketing and Thanksgiving stuff that ended up lasting through Christmas because I underestimated it to begin with. And like everything went well, but man, it was a bender. It was a bender for sure. And so, needless to say, I haven't developed the app yet. And guys, like for anybody out there like wondering why, a typical app takes about 400 to 500 hours to develop, right? And I'm one guy, and I am inexperienced, so it might be a minute. Um, but it's about innovation, right? So if I can get an app and a self-service app as well that you can come in and order on the iPad at the restaurant and stuff like this, that's what's going to make the difference. And making it as easy and as frictionless for you all to not only enjoy this experience, but also, be willing to come back. So, um, yeah, I think I got one more thing. Reopening. For all those wondering here, when we are going to reopen, I've gotten a few questions on Facebook about this stuff. Like, when are we reopening? What's coming up? What's happening? I'd like to say as soon as possible, you know, but with reopening, there's a logistical nightmare that happens. We then have to revert all of our operations that we've been doing for the past year, or better side of a year almost, um, back to what they were or some type of new innovation of that in order to make both work at the same time. So it's complicated. It's complicated. But we're trying to work it out. We get the one go to open businesses back up. That'll be the beginning of it. But then, as long as the numbers stay down and we can figure out our operations right enough, we will definitely be back open. We want people to be back in here safely and as fast as possible. And it's just not worth it if you can't do that. So, financial wise or not. But I did want to talk about the general reopening of the country slash vaccines. Zach, what do you think about the progression of these things and when it's going to happen?
I honestly don't think we'll see a general mass reopening until probably June, July at the soonest.
Right. I think it was about that time, June, late, I guess mid June maybe, that everything started to loosen up in the country the first time. And then I think we all got laxed. So from about June until like September, we were all like, okay, yeah, like we're ready to be done with this. And then October came and it was like, yo, like we're still done with this, right? But then it was like, no, 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 not anymore. And so, yeah, that's kind of where I'm at too. I don't think anything's going to really start to break back open. Now, the curious thing is what happens after June? I know at like June time, summertime, we're going to start breaking a little bit back open. Probably, I'm assuming. But what happens after that? Because the vaccine should be pretty far out by then. We should have quite a few people vaccinated. Um, there should be a lot more cases of corona that have went around. So, like, the virus at some point should start eating itself, you know? So, like, I don't. What's your thoughts? You think we'll be able to like stay open after June?
I'm hoping we will. I don't think it'll go back to the exact same. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of employees are still required to wear masks, especially in large corporations. And they'll probably keep, like, the plexiglass barriers that are everywhere now. But I think in general, there will definitely be, like, a move towards reopening by then. The one thing that might get through a hitch is the coronavirus has already mutated twice. Like right now, they think the vaccines are still effective against these two new mutations. But I know one of the spreads, I think it's around 70% faster. Or 70% more easily to like pass to other people.
Right.
So I'm really hoping for June. But it's definitely possible there could be a mutation or something. And that's like the one worry.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I think it's going to be very interesting to watch it unfold. At this point, guys, we're at the point of prediction and being able to predict when or like when we can't go, like the biggest part and the biggest problem with the first year was like we didn't know what was going to happen more than like 2 months away. Like we knew for this 2 months we were still going to be locked down because it's going to take this long for this to happen. But nobody was able to plan for more than 2 months at a time. And even then, it was like you're still shooting in the dark because you don't know what's going to happen. But now, the way I'm looking at it, and the way most businesses and probably are looking at it, is we're probably going to be in this for another year. But in 6 months, what's going to happen? Because we're going to start opening back up again. The virus should be hopefully down somewhat at that point. Vaccine should be out to quite a few people. We're hoping, and then at that point as well, we'll be able to see a lot more of the effective rate of the vaccine. We'll be able to see the effective consequence of it, even just 6 months away. It's interesting. But I think we're coming out of this some point or another. Maybe not. Maybe not. Um, I don't have anything else. You got anything else, man?
I really don't have anything else.
I think I got a headache. That's what I think. Cool. Cool. Do I need to recap anything? Yeah, guys, I'm gonna try and release some video, some footage of what we do on a daily. I'm leaving for college though, so that's gonna suck. But I'm gonna try and release a video or something of that. I'd like to get you guys in here and as much involved as possible because I think y'all would like that. But yeah, got delivery. You can check us out at fatbacksbbq.com. Thanks for following us on social. If you haven't, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and hopefully while you're watching this on YouTube. Or maybe not watching it. Maybe you're listening to it. We're on all platforms now. But I think this is episode 4. We're going to try and keep going to episode 3 million. So we appreciate y'all. And Zach, I appreciate you, man, for hopping in. I know it's a kind of a drag, especially on this Monday here.
I appreciate you for inviting me on.
Yeah, man. Yeah. I'm going to talk to you about this too as soon as I get to Birmingham. But I'm going to spice some things up a little bit. Got some new stuff going. Going to shake it back a little bit. So some new ideas. Hopefully we'll get some fresh content coming. But that's all I got. So we appreciate you guys. And thanks for watching.